Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in. I'm Jesse Montano. She is Meghan Angley. This is Gorilla Sports Off Ice. Got a fun show for you guys today. We're going to start talking about the forwards for the Colorado Avalanche and revisit that D-Corps just a little bit because we didn't get to everything we wanted to last week, Meghan. But as always, do want to remind you guys about our great friends over at Trusted American Mortgage. Head on over to trustedamerican.com/sports. They want to help you lower your interest rate, get a better monthly payment. And if you go right now, they might even be able to help you skip that mortgage payment for a couple of months, put some extra money in your pocket now in the summer. TrustedAmerican.com/sports. See how much money they can help you start saving today. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome in. Jesse Montano, Meghan Angley. We got John behind the glass today. Chloe left all of us to go gallivanting around Europe.
Is it that time?
It is. Can you believe it? Yeah. So Chloe will be out for the next couple weeks over in Europe. So that's all right. We got the first string in today behind the board. For John, Meghan, I'm going to start with what's on everyone's minds. What are your thoughts on Ozzy Osbourne passing away?
You took the chance away from me to make a pun when we got to talking about the top six. I was going to talk about Val Nichushkin, the choo-choo train, going off the rails on a crazy train. Rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne.
Damn.
But you took it from me from the jump. So I won't get to do that, or I still will. And it'll just sound very familiar when we get to it.
Perfect.
But I actually am, sad to hear it, bummed to hear it.
For sure.
This was, music that my dad listened to, but I subsequently listened to in the car as a result. So I'm hanging in there. How are you doing?
I'm a little freaked out by all of it because he did a farewell tour like 2 weeks ago. And it was like his final performance and all that stuff. And everyone just thought he was retiring. And like,
I thought we knew something was wrong with his health.
Really? Oh, okay.
I don't know. Because I thought even there were murmurs that the wife was also clued in on this and that they might possibly go together around the same time, like kind of just with awareness of this. But you know what? Yeah. I could be making that up. So
this is now an Ozzy Osbourne conspiracy theory podcast. Well, one, I'm very sorry that I took your chance from later. I tell my wife all the time to be funny. Like, ooh, I feel like there's something being taken away from me, and I don't like that. And I feel like I took something away from you, so I apologize.
The chance to make a dad joke
right off the bat. But yeah, rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. Like you said, it's not necessarily our generation's musician, but you couldn't go through life in America in the early 2000s without knowing exactly who Ozzy Osbourne and the whole Osbourne crew was.
Yeah,
so sad to see it.
That guy,
definitely right. Oh, that guy that ate the head off a bat live on stage. Yeah.
I just hope to leave a legacy one day.
Seriously.
Of any kind, really.
Seriously. And sometimes you got to eat a live animal to do so. And hey.
If you're listening, please don't eat a live animal. There are other ways.
You can make all kinds of legacies. But yeah, crazy day. Like that was definitely some crazy, just again, relevant pop culture news, and I just thought I'd start off the top with it.
Yeah.
Other than that, how you doing?
I'm trying to think what else is new. What's going on? I'm doing great though. Good. So it's my dad's birthday on Thursday.
Hey, it was my dad's birthday on Saturday. This past Saturday,
right?
You are asking the wrong person. Yeah,
Leo season. Anyways, gosh, what a time for dads to be born. Am I right?
Seriously. Oh my gosh.
What a great birthday.
Wait, your dad what day is your dad's birthday?
This Thursday, the 24th.
That is Charlie the Wiener Dog's birthday.
Aw, the way you said that is like he's not personally yours.
Well, I call him Charlie the Wiener, but I didn't. I see. Yeah.
This is Jesse's dog's birthday, in case anyone out there listening is a little bit confused.
Charlie is a miniature long-haired dachshund. And
he's so cute.
He's the cutest. Yeah. Elite birthday week here. It sounds
really
like
great
Jeez.
birthdays.
Are you going down to the Springs?
Yes, we'll be
Try not to
doing.
dox you again.
some-
God damn, I'm just giving
Our address is
the last week between you and Zach. I'm just giving up everyone's personal
everyone's
information.
address.
Yeah.
No, we'll be doing Topgolf, karaoke.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm
All right,
excited.
so I'm going to put your parents on blast a bit here. I remember when that Topgolf was going in, you said that your parents were
Yes.
opposed to it a bit. It
Yes.
sounds like they've come around.
So it's a surprise.
Oh, shit.
My
He
dad.
freaks out.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little nervous, you guys. He's never gone because he's sort of been in protest of it, but he loves golf. Like,
okay.
we grew up, he tried to, get me in golf lessons, and we grew up, I'd say, golfing together. It was really me watching everyone else golf, really taking it all in, but he hasn't gone in a really long time. And so I think just the, motion of being at a driving range would be really fun for him, even if he's not sure how to feel about Topgolf. At this point, it's there.
It's
you know
there,
what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
And it's been there for a while. It's not going anywhere. So he's not enabling Topgolf by going at this point.
Right.
And I think he'll have fun. So I kind of need to force him into it.
Good. They have good food. Like, it's nice to have a drink and all that stuff. That'll be fun. Nice. Good for you. Good family fun there.
I've been told, like, if you accidentally throw your golf club over the ledge, they won't kick you out.
Accidentally, of course.
Accidental, because it's one of those things that's occurred to me that I might accidentally do. So I was like, will this get me banned from Topgolf for life?
Grease up those hands a bit. Extra lotion. Woo! All right. Well, nice. That'll be fun. And then I guess the last thing before we get into stuff we're talking about today, it is the off season, folks. I was just telling my mom yesterday, like, she's like, oh, what's going on with the Avs? I was like, less than nothing.
It's so weird they didn't trade for Jordan Eberle.
In between our shows, what the hell? Wow, I love this comment. Can't believe Megan is who I heard about Ozzy from. Hey, we're just here to break news.
This is a pop culture off ice pod.
Yeah. And then this one here, Denver NWSL announces their name as Denver Summit FC.
I love the color palette choice, the logo. It's perfect. I'm so excited.
It's really good. I thought they nailed the branding. I'll be anxious to see. I don't ever think soccer kits are that great looking. It's kind of like European hockey. There's a lot of ads and stuff on them, but I think they ended up with some great colors.
Yeah, I love it.
I saw the primary mark, the secondary mark. I think it all looks great. So last bit of kind of around the state of the state updates there.
State of the state.
I do.
Let's just get into Broncos while we're at it. What is it? Training camp kicks off?
Training camp today. Yep. I believe players are on the field tomorrow.
Well, perfect. Here are all of my thoughts on the Denver Broncos.
Excellent.
I'm just kidding.
Peyton Manning's going to be fantastic
this year. I think he's got the juice still.
Last thing on I almost said Denver NWSL. Last thing on Denver Summit FC. One of the more perplexing stadium plans that I've seen, they're building a temporary stadium first, I believe, to go along with their practice facility. But so that's where they're going to play out of for the first couple of seasons while they then build their bigger stadium. I just thought that was so interesting. I've never heard of someone building a temporary stadium followed by a permanent stadium. I imagine that after they're done with it, it's probably going to become a multi-functional youth soccer tournaments, things like that. But exciting times for Denver Pro Sports. But Chloe and I were about to go do this whole thing a few weeks ago on the groundbreaking for the NWSL stadium. But it was actually for the Denver Summit FC's temporary stadium.
That's so interesting.
Right. I also thought that was really interesting. Did you see that AI thread that guy had? I think it was ChatGPT, make every stadium in the NHL out of Legos, or a Lego set, and each one came with a catchphrase, a tagline and stuff.
Yeah, I saw it, and I don't really remember it because it made a joke about balls, and I was like, that's lame.
It says built for banners, powered by ball jokes.
I don't think that's that funny.
I don't think it is either. The Maple Leafs one, Scotiabank Arena, has choking hazard on it.
That's kind of funny. And so the Buffalo Sabres, when they did their schedule release and they did the different flavors of buffalo wings. They
So
had the
good.
bone and choking hazard for the Leafs. So the Leafs can't catch a break,
They can't.
it seems.
And
it just feels like Buffalo should not be firing those shots.
Absolutely. It's like at least they're in an opportunity to choke. Like let's say made it that far.
Yeah.
Bell Center includes bilingual heartbreak. As Ottawa Canadian Tire Center, as disappointing as the rest of the city.
That was Ottawa's?
Uh-huh.
I've never been to Ottawa, but I've heard it's a beautiful city.
Their issue is that this arena is 45 minutes outside of downtown.
Tough. Okay, fair.
Rogers Place, Edmonton includes everything but playoff caliber goaltending. Winnipeg, at least you don't have to fly to Atlanta to watch us lose anymore. There was another couple good ones. Let's see. Dallas American Airlines Center includes early playoff exits and Instagram models.
What?
XL Energy Center, which is now something different in Minnesota. State of Hockey, warning, State of Hockey is in eternal rebuild, includes empty trophy case. United Center in Chicago, warning, set may rely too heavily on 120-year-old, management not included.
20-year-old.
Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, set includes catfish, cowboy hats, and no defense. Fucking taking a swipe at Roman Yossi there. Little Caesars, Detroit, past glory not included. Wow, Tampa Bay gets completely off the
in
off
hindsight
the hook here.
Ball Arena got off easy.
Totally.
They're really going for the jugular with these others.
Although Tampa says includes 3 cups and 0 state income tax. It's like, yeah,
those are positives.
that's accident or accurate. Pittsburgh set includes aging core and delusional fan base.
Oh.
Buffalo KeyBank Center, the figurine has a paper bag over its head, and it says includes shattered dreams, draft picks, and just vibes.
Just vibes.
Philly says gritty may bite.
I love that.
Madison Square Garden set includes delusion, choking, and just a goalie. Boston. Oh, Mullet Arena, gone but not forgotten.
Oh.
That's it.
I guess Mullet Arena still exists.
Yeah, it's still there. It's still standing. There's just
there's still a team that plays there.
I was gonna say it's just empty, but it's not. You're totally right. All right, I've now burned about 9 minutes reading from Lego sets.
And here are my thoughts on the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah. Where do you want to start? Do you want to put a bow on D since we couldn't do that last week? Or do you want
yeah,
right,
I felt bad too. Some of the names we glossed over are ones that are obvious to us in ways, but also worthy of more conversation. You know, Cale Makar, Devon Taves. These are guys that play a huge role on the back end and are pretty consistent in what they do in being heavily leaned on, but that still shouldn't discount their place in the conversation.
Well, and I feel like it's for me at least, it's one of those things where you almost kind of treat it like a given. It's like, well, yeah, those two are key. You have to, but we did talk about with Brent Burns, and I think this is an interesting part of the conversation of, okay, Brent Burns at face value is Brent Burns. You know what he's going to bring. He's going to contribute offensively. I imagine he's going to be on that second power play unit. He's going to eat up minutes. He's going to kill penalties. But it's kind of the trickle-down effect, which is where I want to start. Of one, how much could a guy like Brent Burns help take some of the pressure off those top guys? But then just, picking apart a little bit more in depth where this D-Corps is actually at, what is going to be expected out of Devon Taves, Cale Makar, Josh Manson, Sam Girard. Where does Sam Alinsky fit in all this? So I'll toss to you. Let's start up top. Cale Makar, Devon Taves, expectations from this year. Where do you think they're going to be able to get some support from the bottom 4 of the D-Corps here.
Well, and I'm not necessarily looking at that immediately. I'm looking at Cale Makar, a pretty near complete season after some health injury concerns at the start of the season beforehand, and he still has a career points total that year, and he manages to surpass it while playing a near full season. And so I think that the availability of Cale Makar this last year is something that I didn't want to breeze by too quickly, that he had a pretty healthy year. And that's significant because a lot of the question around Cale Makar is not his greatness, but what does the history books, what is that going to look like in the end? What are we going to read about Cale Makar in the history books? What's the Hall of Fame impact going to be? Because he's on that track. But the biggest thing with the Hall of Fame track is longevity. And so it is so encouraging to see Cale Makar follow up a season where, though he had that career points high, he missed some time, right? There was that worry. It alleviated some of that worry then for him to have a pretty healthy year, have a Norris caliber season, right? The productivity was there. He surpasses it now, 92 points in 80 games. I think that I wanted to ask the question, pose the question of, what is Cale Makar's ceiling? Have we seen it yet? Has he peaked? Or did he just round this corner around this injury concern and is back on track to continue elevating his game from here?
Megan, I actually think that I don't think we've seen Cale Makar at the height of his powers. He's still only 26. It felt like those first couple years, he was always a little bit older than what you thought because he did take the 2 years in college. But now it feels a little bit like he's kind of settled back into that. Oh no, he's not 28, 29, pushing 30. He's 26 years old. I think, assuming health, I think you could see him take another step this year, and maybe even a couple seasons beyond that before you kind of start getting to that, like, okay, this is probably the peak of the best he'll ever be. And then, it becomes a question of longevity. How long can you stay there? What does that decline start to look like? Can it be a little bit more evened out? But for me personally, and I believe Nate said this near the end of last year, I think we're still seeing the climb for Cale Makar right now and what he's ultimately going to be capable of it at the height of his powers in this league.
I think in looking at his possession numbers, which are always highly favorable at the end of each season, the Corsi 4 percentage 5v5 for Cale Makar proportionate to his games played, which 80 games is the most he's played in the NHL to date. It's the best of his career too. And so I think that the consistency that he demonstrated in this year also demonstrated the way in which his game is just becoming that much more well-rounded. And so that's where I also don't think Cale Makar is at the height of his powers. I think that he's going to continue to become stronger on his own end, stronger defensively, in addition to the offensive threat. And so I agree fully that I don't think we've seen what Cale Makar is fully capable of, because this has been the closest glimpse at a full season of Cale Makar, and the numbers are kind of insane.
He his NHL edge stats, his graph is just so funny compared to everyone.
Is it just kind of around the edges of the graph? Oh, it's a near full circle.
It's almost a perfect circle.
That's actually insane. Is he in the 98th, 99th percentile in every category?
For everything except for offensive zone time, he's in the 90th.
Which is actually great to see given where his time on ice average has ended at the end of, each season going back a couple. He has done the heavy lifting in terms of minutes. And I think in looking alongside the fact that he hadn't played close to full seasons, in addition to that, it's good to see the ice time regulate a little bit. It's still extremely high. He is used in every situation and leaned on so heavily. But I think that this just lends itself to the Brent Burns conversation. When you asked at the top of this conversation, how does the rest of the core support Taves and Makar? This is where I also think we haven't seen what Cale Makar is fully capable of. If he can be unchained from a few of those PK minutes, over the course of a season, that probably helps his body to feel a little bit better at the end of it all. And it frees him up to be more Cale Makar offensively. And I think, too, it allows him to really dial in the details defensively, too. Like, it still means a commitment to the details in his own end and continuing to be well-rounded there. But I think just eliminating the need for him to be the guy that's absorbing those heavy PK minutes with a guy like Brent Burns to help offset that just makes Cale Makar a better 5v5 player. And he's already ridiculous in that right. And I think that makes him a better power play player too, which is hard to improve on, like leads the team in power play goals this last season. It's really hard to ask for more. But
when you saw the struggles on the power play and the way that a team like Dallas was able to key in on him at the top of the zone,
that's a worthy point of conversation too, that I think
he's not infallible on the power play, right?
No, and he's not infallible generally, right? Like there is a game plan that can really counter what Cale Makar does well. For example, he's vulnerable on exits, breakouts. If he is the lone person, he needs the support of a player like Taves, who is very good at that, to help support him on the breakout. And so that's one like small thing that he's good, not great at, that I can see him just continuing to improve on. But that being said, I think a player like Cale Makar walks away from the result of the exit from the playoffs this last year, and he's going to be digging into the why behind it, why it didn't work. And I think he was starting to, as that series wore on, I think Cale Makar was starting to break through some of those challenges and the way in which Dallas was able to counter him, that I also think we see a different version of Cale Makar coming out of camp this next year that is kind of hungry and angry about the way things happened against Dallas.
Yeah, I think the way things happened is a great call out there. It's like they didn't lose, they lost. They didn't just lose and what. It was the way everything went. It was the way some of their top guys, got. And I hesitate saying that because Nathan MacKinnon still dominated that series and was the points leader and all that stuff, but the way that Dallas was able to effectively, have an impact on Colorado's top guys, including Cale Makar. So I think that's a good call out. But, that is I want to shift the focus to what you're talking about of are the Avs building this D-Corps in a way that's meant to be more supportive and take some of the burden off of a guy like Cale Makar, because as impressive as it is, and it's a reason why he's got 2 Norris trophies, that he is as good as he is on both ends of the ice, as leaned on as heavily as he is for minutes, special teams, all situations really. Can you bring in a guy like Brent Burns, lock down a guy like Josh Manson, and steady this back end a bit to where you feel like you can spread those minutes around a little bit more, and that you don't have to be living and dying by Devon Toews, Cale Makar.
And I like to, we've talked about it already, but it doesn't have to be Makar and Toews chained together either. And this opens the possibility to separate the two and potentially inject different offensive tools, whether that be Toews separated from Makar, but is improving the offensive impact of that second pair, and however that gets shaken out. And I do see the value in having some options away from Makar and Toews together then too. I think you lean on that because it works for a reason, and you don't need to break what isn't broken. Fix what isn't broken.
There you go. Yep.
There we go. But I did want to talk about Devon Toews too, shift gears to his ceiling in Colorado, because at this stage in his career, he's getting a little bit older, 31, just finished his first year of that 7-year contract extension that he signed with Colorado. And I think it's important to remember that there were significant periods of this last season that he wasn't at 100%. And so even though he finishes with 76 games, you knew he was playing through something for a little bit of this season. And when you look at his points per game rate over the last couple of seasons, it's just minorly gone down to include this last year, but by such an insignificant amount, I would say, given that he was playing through some kind of injury, that I'm curious to see what kind of a year he responds with then, because I actually don't think he's at the stage in his career where it's at a decline. If anything, it might start to level out. But this last year, I think, was a little bit of a downturn because he was playing through something that I actually expect a little bit of a bump in Taves' year next year. 10 goals, 34 assists, 44 points in 76 games. They're not terrible numbers. I think a 40-point season is not only easily within reach. He had 50-point seasons before that. I think he gets back to hovering around the 50-point mark easily. And, with the same way that a Brent Burns can help elevate the bottom line in terms of minutes being better distributed and being able to focus then on these guys in more offensive opportunities and not having to lean on Taves in it as well on the PK. Does that make then the production just a little bit of a bump, a spike? I'm not going to get unrealistic, carried away with it, but I think it's very feasible that he has a bump from what we saw last year.
Get back closer to that 55 to 60 point range. Well, and Taves, to your point, and you can chalk a lot of it up to dealing with injury, et cetera, et cetera. But he definitely just had uncharacteristic stretches last season, in my opinion, where we were watching him for 1, 2, 3 games in a row where it's like Devon Taves is the guy that doesn't make mistakes, right? Like that's kind of been his hallmark here going back to 2020 of like just solid, doesn't make mistakes, always in the right spot, stick always in the right spot. And I felt like there were times last year, like to your point, turning the puck over, not in the right spot, just uncharacteristic, that I think he got back to closer as the year went on. He felt a little bit healthier. But again, like this is another guy that I look at, and you were just making this point there at the end of, was he being overextended? And you're never going to get Cale Makar or Devon Taves to say, yep, I'm being asked to do too much. Like they're just going to go out there and do it. But it was a guy that was being maybe a little bit overextended, having to play, just a few too many minutes. And I know we joke about that second power play unit doesn't play a lot, but can you put Brent Burns there? And can that suddenly be one less meeting Devon Taves has to be in? Can that be, somewhere where he can put his attention to something else, working with the penalty killers and really honing that in, and just the things that the Avs need him to be really great at. Can you build this D-Corps a bit in a way that supports Devon Taves being able to be the best version of Devon Taves he can be? Because I'm with you. It was uncharacteristic at times last year, and you do have to wonder, is that he's having to do too much? This D-Corps just isn't up to where it was a few seasons ago, and there's a lot being put on him and Cale. And, we pointed out on the show, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago, that was something that was a little bit under the microscope for the Avs, of as things got tight in that playoff series. Was there too much being put on that top pairing in all situations? And can you start to spread that around a bit?
Right. The question of, are there some circumstances where they actually might be better separated from one another because they have tools that can better support parts of the D-Corps that needs it even more? Mm-hmm. And I think that was true in the Dallas series at times. And I fully agree that I think Taves had what appeared to be a little bit of a step backwards this last year, and you could chalk it up to injury. And so I expect 2 steps forward from him this year. And, again, it's a 31-year-old player. I'm not expecting him to suddenly have a career year, but this would be great to clip and go back to when he does. So I'll be so happy for him.
Yeah. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but to your point, yeah, you just want to see him get back to that level. Olympic year 2, so a lot to play for.
Yeah. He cares a lot, so like this big extension for him, I don't think will ever be justification for him to lay back on his heels and not give 100%. So that will never be a concern for me. If anything, I think this year 1 didn't go into this, new contract in the way that he would have hoped. So I think he'll come with a little bit of his own internal motivation and hunger as well.
Where are you at with Sam Girard?
Okay, Sam Girard, I feel like we glossed over him. This is a player that I don't think has made the offensive impact that he is fully capable of, especially in this last year.
Let me pause you real fast. Just an interesting comment just came in. I thought Makar in an interview after the season said he was not playing with an injury, but I'm not sure I believe it. I don't think Cale Makar was dealing with anything that he would consider like, oh, I was playing through this. Cale also has a lot of that mentality of like a lot of guys are playing, everybody's playing through something, so I'm no different. I wouldn't say Cale was playing through an injury at any point, but everyone's got stuff that bothers them. People were pointing out in the playoffs, his hand is taped. That's what's wrong. His hand is taped. His hand was taped all year. All
big tape
season.
guy.
Big time tape guy. So again, I'm not saying that the tape on the hand is nothing, but that's something he dealt with all season. So I don't think it was anything really crazy.
I would agree that if there was any sort of bump or bruise, it was minor. And I really do return to Dallas having such a calculated way of shutting him down that was very effective. Now, it's something too that I think he can work through now that he's seen the way that a team will attempt to shut him down. I think there are ways around it, especially with the support of other players. But I really think that's what it was, because when you look at the intention behind what he was doing, the process behind what he was doing, the chances that he was creating, especially as the series wore on, it just got better and better. He was being stopped by some pretty good lane coverage on behalf of Dallas, and Jake Oettinger was playing extremely well. And so between both of those things and the way in which he would like to create and where he'd like to create from inside the offensive zone was being keyed in on by Dallas so heavily too, that I think there was a level of predictability that Cale Makar will need to overcome too in diversifying some of those options with the help of his teammates too. And so that goes back to more movement and a little bit more deception from everybody on the ice at once, Cale Makar included. And I think that's something that everyone's watching a lot of film on this summer.
I also have to point this out. I'm not saying that you if Jake Oettinger is playing 5% worse, I don't think there is any conversation about how Cale Makar struggled in the first round. Well, the grade A opportunities that he was robbed on at least 10 times across the 7 games, at least 10 times, if not more. That's where you just tip your hat to Jake Oettinger. He was making every big save on Cale Makar, out of the top of the crease, aggressive. So I do think there's a portion of that too, that if 20% of those high danger chances that Cale had hit the back of the net, I think there's a little bit of a, one, they probably move on. And 2, I think there's a little bit of a different narrative around the postseason that Cale had.
1,000%. Because when we do get to our top 6 conversation, that is 100% the case with Artturi Lehkonen and my evaluation of his postseason play.
Yeah.
This was a player that was 1v1 pretty much stopped by Jake Oettinger in terms of the impact he could have had and should have had.
Cale Makar shot at 12.2% in the regular season, 3.8% in the playoffs. That's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, it's an anomaly.
Yeah.
For a player who just came off of a career high, you know, in the regular season, and just every metric impressive. You saw the NHL Edge stats, just every area of Cale Makar's game tremendously impressive. And then the postseason just doesn't have an impact on the score sheet the way that you're used to seeing, though there are still analytics that are favorable to Makar.
100%. Sorry, I fully derailed us. Sam Girard.
So I was like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I know. We even left Sam Girard in the dust in this conversation. And I don't want to do that, because with the way in which Colorado has loaded up on that right side, it has only then made Sam Girard's impact on the back end that much more important. And I think it's important for him to demonstrate the value of the puck moving defenseman with the agility and the mobility that he has. It's such a strength of his game. I bet if you pull up his NHL Edge stats, at least in terms of speed bursts and top speed, I think he'll have pretty high numbers, pretty high percentile. And it's not just the speed, it's the mobility too of what he does that makes him such a threat offensively.
I can't believe he still gets guys as hard as he gets guys to bite with the spin move. It's crazy.
And that's how, honestly, to his credit, how hard to counter it is, how well executed it is. And so beyond those tools, I think offensively he has more to give than we've seen. You know, I think the last 2 seasons with an asterisk by the one before it, right? He entered the player assistance program and missed some time. I really liked the version of Girard that came out of that. And so really the reason his overall points total is a little bit down is from having missed some time. So this last year, I was left wanting a little bit in terms of the pace of his production. And I think some of that is Josh Manson being out of the lineup at times and also not being himself. It was also a matter of finding Girard the right partner to help make this possible. So really where I'm at with Girard is wanting to see him elevate from this last year and kind of build upon the player that came out of the player assistance program, because I really like the versatility in his game, because I thought too the penalty killer that came back from the program was really dialed in, really aggressive in his gap coverage. And I think that continued to be true for Girard in this last year. So I don't want to undersell what he adds to the penalty kill. I know it's not the hulking physicality that people would like out of a defenseman, but it still can be really effective in taking away time and space on the kill that they're going to lean on, in this next year. If we are looking at a kill that's now going to turn to Brent Burns and Josh Manson and Girard a little bit more to alleviate some of those minutes from Taves and Makar, that's going to then turn to Girard just as heavily as they did last year. So I just want to see the offensive impact go up.
Well, and to me, that was something that, and I even hesitate to use the word disappointed, but that has always been something for me with Sam Girard, that when I remember when he first got to Denver, watching him play, it's like, oh man, this guy can skate. He's going to make things happen in the offensive zone, and the production just never quite been where I thought it would with Sam Girard. But, your point about the player that came back from the player assistance program last year and the version of Sam Girard, that to me was what, peak Sam Girard looks like. You and I have talked about it a bunch of times. He is such a better defender than he gets credit for.
Yeah.
He gaps up really well. He for as short as his stick is, he's got a great active stick, gets it in lanes. And he's an undersized defenseman. He's not going to win a bunch of battles in front of the net, but that's not what you have him. That's why you have him paired with a guy like Josh Manson, right? So you live with the lumps of it. But that was what I liked so much about the player from last year. It's like, yes, this is the well-rounded, great skating, good puck-moving defenseman that the Avs were hoping for. And I thought, okay, this is going to get confusing. I thought he was better this season than he was 2 seasons ago.
I'd agree. I think he's more well-rounded.
I agree. But I thought this season was a little disappointing relative to how he finished last season.
Yes.
If everyone's stuck with that. And yeah, if he can give them closer to what he gave them at the end of last season, I mean, that's a true number 3 defenseman. And as we've talked about, probably a top pairing guy for several teams around the league, but he was effective. He was efficient. He was moving the puck quickly. He was making good reads, standing guys up at the blue line, keeping guys to the outside. He's like I said, he's effective at getting in lanes. And I thought that was a lot of what we saw from him at the end of last season. In spurts this year, for me, it's the consistency. Can you find what you had at the end of last year? And can you do that for 70 games? Assuming health. I think if he can do that, I think the production will come. And I think, what you need from him on both ends of the rink will be there. I want to see more consistency from Sam Girard.
Yeah, offensively, because honestly, defensively, I think there's a lot of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And
I want to see more consistency 200 feet, I guess is what I should have said.
And what I'll add to that is when everybody is playing their role to expectation, it makes our evaluation of Girard a bit different. Girard not being the menacing net front presence matters a little less if Josh Manson is being that. And there were periods of time where Josh Manson wasn't. He was not making great decisions with the puck. And I think that he wasn't always sure who to commit to in terms of his assignment. And that would leave gaps in their coverage in the defensive zone, gaps that Sam Girard wasn't quite equipped to handle, you know? And so when everybody's playing to their role, then when you've got Josh Manson being the heavy physical presence and tending to the net front the way that he should, it allows us to see Girard for what he should be, what he's supposed to be. And I'm evaluating him then through more of an offensive lens, like wanting to see the offensive impact. And that's my hope for next year, is that I'm not sitting here talking about lapses in Sam Girard's coverage, because that's going to happen with every defenseman at some point. I don't want to key in on that too closely. I want to be able to just evaluate the offensive impact that he is or isn't having. And similarly, I don't want to be talking about Josh Manson making bad decisions with the puck. I want to be talking about him sending guys into the first row. And so if everyone's doing what they should, it takes a little bit of pressure on where we're evaluating certain areas of these guys' games that aren't necessarily supposed to be their strengths, and allows us to just focus on what should be their strengths. And that, you know, on the rest of the back end, we've talked about Brent Burns and we've talked about Sam Malinsky at length, but it's true of them too. Like, Sam Malinsky was more physical in the playoffs. I know people are probably not going to want to hear that, but that was true. And it doesn't jump off the page at you, because that's kind of where he should be. That is the level of play that should be his baseline. When he is doing that, we're probably going to be talking about Sam Malinsky critically a lot less, because that's just the baseline that he should be playing at, leveraging a little bit more physicality because he is a strong and sturdy player despite being a bit undersized, so that we're only talking about Sam Malinsky's offensive impact. And then for Brent Burns, kind of similar story.
So I want to make sure that I'm clarifying here, because I already can tell that there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to get in the comments and say, Megan's talking about Cale Makar and Sam Girard and Sam Malinsky's offensive impact. They're defensemen. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I believe the point you're making is want to see that consistency in the defensive side of their game, so it's not even a topic that we're having to bring up and say,
right, because it's consistent.
Right. There's Sam Girard's doing that. It's like, no. You want to see them get their game to the point where it's like, yeah, that first responsibility versus a defenseman on the, you know, in your own end is consistent. It's well-rounded. It's taken care of. So let's talk about where you benefit, you know, or not where you benefit, where you know, can put your skill set that you have that's so great to work on the other side of the ice. Am I understanding that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
And I hope there's no confusion, because that would be really silly.
What I'm hoping for as we're saying this is that there's someone who is hearing this, like, well, I'm just going to start typing the comment, and then they start hearing this part of it, like, oh, never mind. I get what they're saying. I'm an idiot. Never mind.
Just to be clear, like, there's a reason Tyson Barrie has found himself more or less out of the NHL at this stage in his career. And it's because you have to be more dimensional than just your offensive impact as a defenseman. And thankfully, what's true of Sam Girard, we've talked about the consistency defensively and what he adds to the PK, and why this player who has this descriptor as the mobile puck-moving defenseman can have more of an offensive impact than we've seen. And so similarly with Malinsky, whose season, we've talked about at length. I just feel bad. Like, we talk about Sam Malinsky so much, but it's because he started the year and he took more risks, and we saw a little bit more of the offensive flash and the strength of his shot. And his play stagnated a little bit to where the offensive impact was a bit lesser, though I still found what he was doing defensively to be pretty consistent. Because the offensive impact had waned, that's why he was benched. That's the bottom line. And so you also have to be more dimensional than your D-zone coverage. You have to be reliable and consistent in that. And so where Malinsky can gain an edge because he's still earning trust is also leveraging a little bit more of that physicality in his own end, while being unafraid to flash the offensive side of his game. Because I think when he stepped away from that, and though still good in his own end, that was where Jared Bednar's like, I need more reason to play you.
So let me give... I just looked at the clock. I'm going to put a bow on this. Now let's shift over to the top six here.
We are a mess.
I know. We always are. That's fine. That's why people watch.
No wonder we didn't even get to all of the D-Corps on the day we were doing the D-Corps. Like, of course, this is how it happens.
It's our own fault. You can't be one-dimensional. It's not unlike the enforcer, right, in the NHL now, where every team used to be able to have one, two, maybe even an entire line of guys who did not contribute much other than being intimidating, hitting guys, fighting, to the point where it was even kind of not necessarily comical, but like it was a big thing when those guys would score a goal because, it's kind of like that. We're like, yeah, you can still be a big, mean, menacing player in the NHL, but you've got to be able to contribute offensively, get in on the forecheck, kill a penalty. Like, just gone are the days of the 3-minute a night enforcers. So when you look at I think the same thing is true of defense to your same point. And I'm going to bring up two players here, Erik Karlsson and Jacob Slavin. For different reasons, but those two players are never anymore. Erik Karlsson was for a minute there when offensive defensemen were really in. Those two players aren't talked about, now as like the best defenseman in the league, even though Erik Karlsson is still just an offensive lightning bolt out there. Like he still contributes a lot to the Penguins offensively, is a threat in the offensive zone, great moving the puck. Horrible defender. Can't have that anymore. Jacob Slavin is never a finalist for the Norris Trophy, despite being what many consider, myself included, the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. His offensive impacts just aren't there in the way that I think a lot of people would like to see them be. And so to your point, you have to be a modern day defenseman. You have to be able to impact the game offensively, help get the puck up ice, but you can't be a crater in your own end. You have to be able to do both proficiently. That's just the new NHL. There are too many guys that are starting to come up cut from the same Cale Makar, Lane Hudson cloth where they're effective on both sides of the puck. Got to be able to have that. Let's talk about these forwards specifically and see great foresight by you, Megan, keeping us limited to half of the forwards because you knew we were going to do this.
I still don't think we even are going to get to the whole
I don't
of the
think
top
we are
six.
either.
We might have to even just go for top line.
We are going to have another forward conversation. So maybe
and honestly, it's summer. We can break this up as much as we want,
100%.
Revisit as much as we want. If we want to talk goalies again, fine.
That is the one we may have gotten to everything.
I do know. I do think we did. I do think we did.
Let's talk about the forwards. Top six in particular. I think this is an interesting makeup that the Avs have right now. And I think this much more likely than the D-Corps. I think there's a good possibility we see movement. I think there's a better possibility we see movement. And I think it all depends on what happens with the Marty Netchis negotiations.
Totally. And that's why we went crazy with our trade target boards.
Right. And so I don't want to say that I think there's a good possibility they move Marty Netchis. I think there's a better possibility they move a guy like Marty Netchis versus what I think the Avs will be pretty happy with that back end right now.
I think so too. And I think they run the risk of a hole too big to fill with anything comparable or better if they move out any one of those pieces, because I think they've got players like Gerard and even what they've just signed Malinsky to on affordable contracts that are hard to beat. So if you are moving out any of these pieces, you need to replace it with better. And it's hard to get more affordable for the quality that you have in the back end right now. So I'd be very nervous unless the return was better.
Oh, I thought that said Canadians
got McTavish.
So I was like, oh, well, fuck.
I think everyone wants it on McTavish.
Well, and to your point, I got a text from someone over the weekend that said they didn't think he would be a good cultural fit with the Avs.
Well, I'll beat them up. Zach. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't think it was Zach.
No, it was someone from the league, not from the NHL, but like it was someone that is around, and they said they didn't, but I don't know. I'm still in on him. The other issue too with potentially trading a guy like, let's just pick on Sam Girard because you're not trading Josh Manson now. Is you're already out of balance lefties righties.
Totally.
And moving on from a lefty that's on a good deal to try to bring it. I think that if the Avs are going to make a big swing trade between now and the start of training camp, which I am not, is far from a guarantee. I think it would be a Marty Netchus guy reshaping this top six again.
Yeah, which is interesting because as we addressed in our trade target pod, the bottom six, middle six, is where there's maybe some nerves, some concern. But where they have the most ability to transform the roster, I do think lies in that top six. And it is because of the uncertainty of Marty Netchus and his next contract. It's not because I feel the Avs are motivated to move on from him. I actually would love to see what another full season of Marty Netchus is capable of in Colorado. But they don't want to run into the situation they were in with Mikko Rantanen.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about it right after the playoffs, but I don't know if we've given enough air to it since. From my seat, I have not been told this by anyone. From my seat, Megan, Marty Netchus did not look like a great playoff fit for the Avs. And that was the caveat with a player like Netchus coming over from the Hurricanes is like, yeah, this is a zone entry machine, got great speed. He's another righty. He kind of gave a really interesting dynamic to him and Nate for a lot of the regular season on the power play. But then we saw a guy in the playoffs that I think you pointed out, like he looked confused because he was a player who was criticized for shying away from the physicality, not getting to the difficult areas, not penetrating the middle of the ice. And it looked like he was maybe trying to overcompensate at times for that and doing stuff that was out of character. And so I don't know, you could look at that one of two ways. One, saying, all right, well, he's clearly moldable. He was trying to do what the Avs wanted to do. A full season might be good for him. Or you sit there and say, this guy isn't going to be able to play Jared Bednar hockey at the toughest time of year.
I personally feel that would be premature because I still go back to that evaluation of a player trying to be receptive to that feedback and implement it in his game in kind of a confused way. Some J-Fresh numbers going into the playoffs, he was below the 50th percentile in forecheck involvement. And so I think there was extra concern given past playoff performances and going into these playoffs with his involvement on the forecheck being a little bit down from what you'd like to see. That is Jared Bednar hockey to a T. That there was feedback. We need you to be on top of pucks. We need you to be battling for them. And we need to see that physicality effort. And so I think he tried to implement that in his game. And it took away then from some of the offensive instinct. I think out of fear of making mistakes, he was more reluctant to lean into that. And so I think that he was hesitant with pucks in terms of passing them off to his teammates. And that eliminated really good options. In those first couple of seconds in dusting off the puck for a second too long, he lost out on options. And then in not skating the puck through traffic, which the toolkit
that was the number one for me.
You just described in terms of his entries and the speed, that is a strength of his game, and getting the puck to the dangerous areas and being able to protect it through traffic, I think are strength of his game that we didn't see, in part because of a player, I think, that was afraid of making mistakes. Anyways, we've talked about that. We've unpacked that a bit. All I see is a player who has the right intention behind what he's doing and a really fabulous toolkit. And so, he comes off of
the tools
a
are
career
unbelievable.
high.
So
83 points in 79 games, splitting the seasons, 28 points in 30 games in Colorado. That point production is obviously valuable, especially in trying to replace the production that Mikko Rantanen added. And his role was, beginning to diminish a bit in Carolina. I think that he was falling out of favor of Brind'Amour hockey, and it just led to his role being a little bit lesser at times. So for him to have been on that trajectory in points in Carolina ahead of the trade, with even a little bit of a lesser role, come to Colorado back in a more elevated role, and you see the production kind of match that. That just leaves me wanting to see a full year of Marty Netchus in Colorado, to include the difference he had on the power play immediately in Colorado. It was something different, and I think that's what was lacking in the playoffs. Is it was so predictable because the Avs power play was what everyone in the league has known it to be for the last couple of years. The addition of Marty Netchus and some of the variability that he added to it in the movement and the rotation that he offered to that top unit, they didn't use that in the playoffs as much as they could have. And so I just want to see a full season of all of this with Marty Necas.
So here's the question, though, because I don't necessarily disagree with you. I do have some concerns about the. I agree with the assessment of like that looks like a player who's eager to learn and break that mold a little bit and do things a little bit different. I do worry about his overall style of play. But here's my question for you. RE wanted to see a full season. At what cost? Are you either it be what would you be? I'm going to put you in the position of being Chris McFarland. What would you be willing to pay him? And are you willing to risk going through this season of let's see what happens? What kind of player is he with a full season under his belt? Would you be willing to risk walking him right to unrestricted free agency and letting him go for nothing? So while I don't necessarily disagree with wanting to see a full season out of a guy like Necas and what he could bring to that top six, playing next to Lehkonen and McKinnon, where do you draw the line money-wise? Because that's going to be the biggest problem with all this.
If he wants 10, which is rumored, that's going to be, I think, a bit too rich. If it comes in high 9, I'm listening. Obviously, when someone pitched the idea of like 8-8, just because of his number,
right.
The JJ Peterka contract, I love the continuity of the numbers. I'm super in on 8-8. Make it 8-8 by 8. I'm just kidding. That's way too long. But you know what?
He's only 26.
Fine, sold. But here's the thing, right? All of this comes with circumstance. Like, I am not saying to just blindly take a bet on Marty Necas either. If I was privy to the same information as to how these conversations are going with his agent, I could better answer this hypothetical. But I don't know. I don't know how far apart these parties actually are. If they're really far apart in terms of number and there is no indication that it'll get closer, then it's not a risk worth taking, walking him into free agency.
I just don't. I wouldn't be comfortable giving a Marty Necas style player 8 figures. I just wouldn't be comfortable giving him 10 million plus.
No, I think it definitely has to come under 10.
Yeah.
And so maybe you keep the term down too, honestly, because we're still sitting here wondering, can he become the player that the Avs would like him to be?
Right.
I don't want to commit to term necessarily.
This was a career year for him by a pretty nice margin.
And I do think this is also a high caliber player whose best is yet to come. So that's why I see a lot of value in investing in Marty Necas. And I look at the transformation of Val Nichushkin in Colorado and the amount of time that it kind of took. Now, I don't think the Avs have quite that many seasons for Marty Necas to assume his true form. But I also think very different player coming to Colorado, that if Val Nichushkin can round out his game in Colorado, and even Jonathan Drouin, over the course of one full season was able to do it, I think Marty Necas can too. So, it includes a couple of moving parts, right? I'd love for them to get the extension done, come in under 10, maybe not have as much term as a result. Is Marty Necas agreeable to that? Does he like it here, or is he just okay here? Yeah. Is he pretty neutral here? Is he trying to maximize his career earnings as a young player in this league? That would be fair. Wouldn't blame him for it.
9 million for me is kind of like my high-end ceiling, where it's like, yeah, keep it at 9 or less. I think that's a good bit of business. I think everyone's happy. He gets a nice raise. You get the player locked up, and then starting next year, you're getting more than that in a cap jump. You know what I mean? So like by the time that contract is kicking in, it's almost kind of a wash. If you're keeping him under 9 or less, I think it's a great bit of business. 9.5 is my ceiling, where it's like, I don't think you can go any higher than that on a player like Marty Necas.
I think too, what's tough is it obviously has to be less than Mikko Rantanen money. That is exactly what we're talking about. But you also you have to pay a player in your top 6 no matter what. So if they kick this can down the road, like, okay, it's not Marty Netches, that isn't the fit, they still have a big top 6 hole to fill. And I'm curious then how they'd plan to fill it. Because like our trade target board, those were aging gap stops that Colorado would be plugging in there. Those would not be past this year solutions for their top 6, maybe Jared McCann. But
well, yeah, I was saying like Ricardo, Cal, Brian, Russ each. Yeah, they each have a couple of years left on their deals.
And so Marty Netches does extend a window, is where I'm going with this.
Absolutely.
And so that's where there's still pros and cons that make this a different option. That, I don't know, I look around the league and the crazy money people are willing to spend on Mason McTavish potentially. And I think I get a little bit traumatized after Mikko Rantanen in not wanting to gamble with the top 6 too much because it's going to require a payday no matter what. It's really hard to cut corners in how you fill that out. I think even the end of Jonathan Drouin's time here exposed that very minorly. I still think, too, the way it ended doesn't reflect the player that he was in Colorado and the growth that he had. But even still, I think, that kind of exposes why cutting corners here can cost you. And it, on the whole, the offense was down for Colorado. They couldn't put pucks in the back of the net, and they needed more guys because Nathan McKinnon had his hands full. Cale Makar had his hands full because Dallas had their number. They needed more support from players like Marty Netches, so he's not absolved of this. But it's just a part of the lineup that I think they recognize, we can't, there's not really an affordable way to do this.
And we have to address, I think, right here, because here we are talking about needing an impact top 6 wing. And it is easy to sit there and say, well, you had one and you gave it away. I do think that is, even if just optically, and I know the Avs don't run their business based on optics, but like, it's part of the reason why you have to get a good deal on this Marty Netches contract. If it comes in even close to that Mikko Rantanen number.
No, come in under 10 and then we're in business.
Yeah. If it, for whatever reason, I don't think it would.
If it comes in on 10 on the dot, you know what? I'll eat it. No, I'll eat it.
It would really depend what the term is for me. But you can't approach anywhere near, even what the rumored Mikko Rantanen numbers were, because then everyone's right. You should have just done that. And you should have just stayed kind of thin for last year and then, taken the cap jump and da-da-da-da-da. I don't think it will. But the whole point of them making the Mikko Rantanen move was, what were the first words out of Chris McFarland's mouth? We weren't deep enough.
Right.
You have to get Marty Netches secured at a number that allows you the flexibility that you made the trade for. I do believe, Megan, this is just me. I think it would have gotten done. I think Mikko Rantanen wanted to stay in Colorado enough. I think he liked it here. I think him and his girlfriend? Fiance?
I'm not sure if it's partner.
I think him and his partner. I think they had roots here. I think he was extremely close with teammates, friends. I think at worst, this would have become the Gabe Landeskog situation where it comes down to the 11th hour and a deal gets done. I really do think that would have happened with Mikko Rantanen. But you made the move because you said, even if that happens, we're not deep enough and we aren't good enough to win a cup paying this much money at the top of our lineup. I don't disagree. But now you've got to, that plan's got to bear itself out here, right? Like, we're not talking about the bottom 6 today, but there's a lot of work to be done there still. Like, right now, you are not in a much better place than you were last season in terms of forward depth. And you've got to get this Marty Netches contract to come in at a place that's going to allow you to build that out the way that you intended when you made a franchise-altering decision. And if you can't get it there, I think you need to move on from Marty Netches, because I still think you have a really good top 6 that we haven't really touched much more on, because I do think so much of it hangs in the balance of what do you decide to do here? Because if you're keeping Marty Netches, I think this is a really fun, really exciting top 6. Personally, I think Netchis, McKinnon, Lehkonen. You got what we're going to assume is going to be at least the majority of the regular season from Gabe Landeskog. You got Brock Nelson. You got Val Nichushkin, which Chris McFarland pointed out a few weeks ago. Like, we're not dealing with that uncertainty around Val. Like, I think this top six has a chance to really make some noise here. You got to get things right with Marty Netchis and remove that distraction immediately.
Yeah, they have access to more information about how far apart these conversations actually are. But they need to get clear on what it is. And I'm comfortable under 10. Not sure about 10. I know a second ago I was like, I'll eat it, I'll absorb it. I got nervous as I said it. I know I did, but it's because with Brock Nelson's contract, which I think is completely fair, but I hoped they would be able to get it for a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Brock Nelson's contract will become a contract that ages well, just in seeing the center market and the desperation of other teams, what they're willing to pay. I think 7.5 will age pretty well for Brock Nelson. But because that was a contract and a part of the lineup that they spent a little more than I thought they would, I don't see them having tons of flexibility to then throw the money at Marty Netchis that he might be able to command in the open market.
What you can't end up with is a $10 million 65 to 70 point player.
No.
In potentially Marty Netchis. Yeah, there they are. The green lights are back. Super chat, Mike Peterson. Good to see you, Mike. It's been a minute. Keep missing these lives. Here for some green lights. By the way, Netchis has to want to be here or I don't want him. $5 for Mike Peterson. It's good to have the green lights going back.
Yes,
it's nice to have them going back again. That is the last part of all of this. Is those rumors of Marty Netchis potentially not being happy in Colorado. You and I have addressed that. I would chalk that up to, at most, some uncomfortability with a transition. Mikko Rantanen talked about, like, getting settled is really tough. To me, that just makes me want to see the full season of Netchis, like you were referring to before.
Yeah.
I don't think it was an issue with him not liking teammates, the organization, the city.
No.
Things like that.
I think that we live in a day and age where players recognize their worth and the many options that exist for them to maximize it. And so I don't think it's personal if Marty Netchis in that number with the front office, it just doesn't come to agreement. I think that he's a young player who wants to maximize his earning potential. And he has to weigh too, then, if he enjoys the culture here and the chance to win here alongside that. But I don't think there's any disinterest in playing here.
No, I agree. Like I said, at most I would say maybe a tough transition for him. You played one place your whole career. That's at most the furthest I'd be willing to take it.
Not so different from our guy at 2C in Brock Nelson. So we can talk about a different piece of the top six.
This is a guy I'm really excited to see a full season for, Megan. I thought as that first round wore on, him, Landeskog, Nichushkin just looked more comfortable, that by the time we got to game 7, I was like, oh man, this second line is going to be a problem for teams going forward. Obviously game 7 goes the way it does. I think this is a guy that has the potential to thrive here.
I think that people underestimate what a natural goal scorer Brock Nelson is, keeping in mind he's going into his 12th season with the Islanders, and it's all that he's ever known. And so this is quite an upset for a player who has spent his career with the Islanders coming to Colorado. You go back to 2021-22 season, his goal totals from then on are 37, 36, 34, with 26 goals split this last year between two teams. He's a pretty consistent, not only 30 goaler, but pretty high 30s. And his points per game, especially by the end, like the regular season stretch, I think it was a slow start for Brock Nelson that people were left wanting and a bit worried that this guy wasn't worth what the Avs had given up in this high-end prospect in Cal Ritchie. And I think that the points per game in matching Charlie Coyle's to that was viewed very differently. Like, it was excellent for Coyle to produce at the rate that he had at the end of the regular season, and concerning that Brock Nelson also had gotten to that point. because I think people were hoping to see more. And then in the playoffs, it obviously didn't jump off the page at you in terms of his impact. But I think that he has so much more to give when you look at the goal totals and the point production every year past this year, where he has this huge upset in his life, being traded to a different team with a young family, young kiddos, and a wife juggling the young kiddos and trying to manage that part of his personal life alongside such a huge life change. I think when you look at what he's done production wise consistently at this stage of his career, it's fair and reasonable to expect him to return to that with a full season of stability. You know, he'll start training camp having lived in a home here in Colorado with his family and settled to start. And I think that's a much better place to start the year than coming into Colorado and being dropped into this lineup. Because you're absolutely right. I think that we talk about how they got longer down the middle. And I think that his size, his reach is what allows him to also be in the top 20 in takeaways of this last season. And so I think that the two-way player that Brock Nelson is, we don't talk about quite enough, alongside one of the best two-way players in Gabe Landeskog, who's, you know, he's getting his feet back under him. That's why you saw the possession numbers just completely jump when Landeskog was added. But some of that is what Brock Nelson naturally does very well too. In addition to being a natural goal scorer, I think that he is a really smart player with a good instinct defensively, and there's so much more to give offensively than we've come close to seeing.
Well, and then not only to the point you're made about he's going to have his house and he's going to be a little bit more settled, you're also going to understand this coaching staff a little bit better. And you're not the new guy anymore, right? Like, we kept going and talking to Brock Nelson as media of, well, how is this different? How does this compare to, well, are you ready for, but no, he doesn't have to worry about any of that. It's just show up, play, do my thing, focus on the things I'm focused on. Another guy who's going to be on an Olympic radar for Team USA. He's going to be motivated. And I'd be willing to bet that he's going to be someone too that is going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, because this probably didn't go the way he wanted it to either in the short little, in terms of, results, that short little stint with the Avs. I think he's going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to prove this is why they brought me in, everything you were just talking about. But then I loved the point you brought up right after the playoffs when we were talking about, do you bring Brock Nelson back or not? And it's that, the point that you made at the time was he just went through something really heartbreaking with this group. How do you not want to, bring the band, pull the band back together and go for it again? And I do wonder if that's going to be a motivating thing for him.
Totally.
We joked about, Brent Burns, Ray Bourque, whatever it was last week. But like, I saw a lot of sentiment going into the playoffs last year for a lot of fans who were like, I'd love to see Brock Nelson win one.
Yeah.
Like, this is, again, like you said, 12th year in the league. Starting to be a little bit of an older, veteran player, still in his early 30s. Like, this is another guy that has been around for a long time that really wants to check that last thing off his list. And I think he's going to be highly motivated, and I'm really excited to see full season Brock Nelson.
He made them better down the middle. He's a reliable option there because of his experience. And I think Casey Middlestat was a cautionary tale, and why a player who is still getting their bearings at the NHL level as a top 6 center, which is weird because that was the role he had in Buffalo. But obviously Buffalo, the context of what they are is different. It was hard for Casey Middlestat to make it work in Colorado. That's the bottom line. And I think a lot of that is his inexperience that he's still building, and a lot of the mental toughness too that he's still building up. Brock Nelson, you could see that a lot of that was already built up in him as a player. And I fully agree that the emotional investment that he can now have with clarity that he's going to be here now the next 3 seasons. And so he can get invested with this team and is probably feeling the sting of that exit and that loss. Going around the room, it breaks my heart how many players repeated the sentiment that they thought they had a really special group this year and that there was something special in this locker room. And I'm just glad that Brock Nelson gets to be a continued part of that something special that the players were all feeling around them this last year.
And then just a reality. It's not fair to Brock Nelson, but you gave up a lot for him. It's nice to see them get a chance to retain him and take another stab at it, given the premium that you paid to acquire Brock Nelson.
Yeah.
And like I said, you can't hold that against Brock Nelson. You can't really hold that against the organization for very long, but you give the next Patrice Bergeron for him. So
Stop.
Megan, we're at an hour 15 here. Let's put a pin because we need to circle back on the forwards anyways.
Yes.
And I think those Marty Netchis, Brock Nelson in particular, I mean, they're the variables this season, right? Gabe Landeskog, yes, he missed that, but he's back. Nathan McKinnon, Arturi Lehkonen, Val Nichushkin. So, like, those are some known quantities. I think there's some expectation setting that, you know, we can kind of talk through that those guys are going to do for themselves this year. But let's circle back on the forwards, top six altogether, because I think there's a lot to unpack here.
I agree. I'm excited to dig into those other guys on a different pod.
Yes.
We
could take this 3 hours if we wanted to.
No. We have so much off season, so much summer still ahead of us.
Painful amount of off season.
Oh, but I didn't get to make I kind of already did off the rails, crazy train. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify. I don't want Val to go crazy. I just want him to go crazy with his production. Okay. I want him to go off the rails offensively.
Let the record show that Megan is asking for Val Nichushkin to take everything off the rails.
Psycho mode. No, I hate it. No. Val's in his healing era.
He is in his healing era. That's going to do it. We'll be back later this week, Friday, for another pod. Should be fun. Should be another fun one. And we're just going to keep this slow drip, deep dive through the Avs roster, because
we should have one show dedicated to talking about Jared Bednar and the year we expect for him to have.
Coaching staff. We could do we should also do the Plinko board is sitting just off screen here. We should just do a full episode where, as we're talking, we're dropping Plinko coins, and whoever has the most money at the end of the show wins.
Gets to make decisions about the Avs.
C-Mac, ball's in your court. We just issued the challenge, so
yeah.
If you think you can come out Plinko us, let me know. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. We got the man himself, John, behind the glass today, pulling it all together as always. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back at it here in just a few days. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.